Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Chaim David. Okay. So we're on. Let's see what daf are we on. Samach Amud Beis. So the subject we've been talking about is parnasa, which is means dowry, and that the father died, and the question is to take out from the estate to give dowry to the daughters in order to get married. We had the two subjects, mazonos and parnasa. Mazonos is tanai ksuba, and parnasa is not. And okay, that's going to be now the sugya. Okay, I jumped a little bit. That's right here. Yesterday we had the question about how you evaluate it. Fine. The Gemara starts. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe. So this is Rebbe talking. Parnasa Eina Tanai Ksuba. That's what he said. Parnasa is not like Tanai Ksuba, but we don't know what that means yet. What do you mean to say? Tanai Ksuba usually means mazonos, that a husband has to give his wife mazonos after, that the mazonos goes to the wife after, or to the daughters, the daughters get mazonos, let's say that way. That's the Benonukvan, that they get mazonos after the father dies. That's the proper pshat. So he says the fact that dowry is not similar to Tanai Ksuba, which means the mazonos that the daughters get from the Yerusha. The parnasa is different, but he didn't explain himself in what aspect does he mean to say that is different. What did he mean to say? So the Gemara has a few choices. The Gemara is going to reject the two choices, then it's going to get to the bottom where it's going to have the pshat. First, the Gemara tries. Rashi brings down a Mishnah in Gittin that says that if the Yisomim they sold the Yerusha, so we don't go to the buyers, the lekuchos, and go take it back because there's a lien on it to pay the mazonos of the sisters. That's called that it's not tarfim and mishabdi. They can't collect the mazonos from the fields that were sold, and because they have a lien on it, the lien doesn't go so far that they should be able to collect it. Of course, the sons are not supposed to sell it; they have to support their sisters. But if they did, you don't go to the buyers and take it back from them because there's a lien from their sisters. Rashi says the reason is because Tikkun Olam, that people don't know how much mazonos they're going to need, means that people wouldn't be able to sell their fields because who knows if this is ever going to have to be used for paying the sisters mazonos. There's not a definite amount. So that's as far as mazonos you don't collect from Mishabadim. Maybe he meant to say, parnasa, you do, that if the Yisomim, the Yorshim had sold the estate, so we do go to the Lekuchos and say that you can't have all this because the sisters have to get married and the dowry is going to be paid from the estate. And even though you bought it, you have to get it back, give it back, and you'll get reimbursed, of course, from the sons that sold it. But the chiddush would be that parnasa is different than tanai ksuba. Tanai ksuba you don't take from the mishubadim, you don't take from the fields that were sold, and the parnasa for the dowry you would. Maybe that's what he means to say. But then the Gemara says, my kamashman, I wouldn't have been a chiddush. The Gemara says it wouldn't be a chiddush because that's what happens every day. Means the fact that in the mazonos, that's a Mishnah Rashi brings down. Just point out the Mishnah in Gittin over here. Rashi brings down in Gittin in lachidus peres lamazon each of abanos b'nechosim mishabadim. That's a Mishnah. And the point that we do take from the estate that was sold by the Yorshim, you take it back from the buyers in order to give the dowry to the daughters. Ma'asim b'chol yom means everybody does it. It's pashut, everybody does it. We're going to see later on in the sugya today that it's not so pashut, but the Gemara at this point holds that at that time of Rebbe, or Rav Huna, let's say, Rav Huna said over this story, this halacha, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe, everybody did it. So that wouldn't have been the chiddush. Rav Huna sounds like he's saying a chiddush. The Rebbe says parnasa is different than mazonos. If all he meant to say was that you could foreclose from those that were sold, that's the right word to use, that if the Yisomim had sold the estate, so you could go to the buyers and take it back because there's a lien on it for the dowry. Yeah, everybody knows that. That wouldn't have been the chiddush of Rav Huna. So try number two. That from Mazonos, the Gemara is suggesting the possibility that to give the food to the daughter, to the sisters, these Yorshim, they got the Yerusha, and the daughters are supposed to get the food support. So maybe that's only from the real estate that they inherited, not from portables, not from personal things, not from metaltali. And the chiddush is going to be that parnasa, the dowry, you do take even from metaltalim. They yarshin all kinds of things. They yarshin land. They also yarshin money or valuables, jewelry, whatever it might be. So from mazonos, you only get from the karka. I'm sorry. Mazonos. We'll get to it soon. Here it says that Tanai Ksuba is only going to be from Karka, not from a Taltalim. And maybe he meant to say that the dowry could be taken from a Taltalim also. Maybe that's what he meant to say. But the Gemara says that's not true. There's a machlok about this whole point. Chaim David mentioned we had some things about it. We'll get to it again. But the Rebbe, we're talking about Rebbe. The Rebbe is the one who's talking. That's how the Gemara started. Amar Ravuna, Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said this. We're trying to figure out what Rebbe meant. Rebbe happens to hold that you collect from Mazonos also from Metaltalim. The Rebbe, that even the Mazonos also could be collected from Metaltalim. So he couldn't have meant that. When he said that dowry is different than Mazonos, he couldn't have meant that the dowry is taken even from Metaltalim and the Mazonos is only taken from Karka, because he happens to hold that even the Mazonos is also taken from Metaltalim. The Tanya, both real estate and portables. The Rebbe says that you do take even from the Metaltalim of the Yerusha to feed the widow and the daughters of the deceased, I mean the sisters of these Yoshim. So he couldn't have meant that either. It also wouldn't have been a good shot to say that the dowry you take from a Metaltalim and the Mazonos you don't, because Rebbe happens to hold that the Mazonos is also paid from a Metaltalim. So we still don't have a shot. What does Rebbe mean to say that Parnasa, the dowry is different than Mazonos? So down the Gemara comes to the final shot. All lines up. Elamai Parnasa and a Ketanai Kesuba l'Cheretanya. Omer Al Yazonu Benosa of Benachosav ain't Shomalo, but Al Yisparnasu Benosa of Benachosav Shomalo. Shaparnasa ain't a Ketanai Kesuba. The Mazonos, we said this a couple of times. I was basing it on this Gemara. Yesterday we said it that Mazonos is that the Takanas Chachamim, that the man has to support his daughters from his estate after he dies. That's not his decision. And even if he says, I don't want to, you don't listen to him. That's the case that it says. If a person says, I don't want to, Omer, he says, he gives instructions. My daughter should not be supported from my estate after I die. We don't listen to him. That's the Takanas Chachamim. That's one of the Tanai Ksuba, Benan Nukvan. I was a Mishnah before that the daughters that I have from you should be supported after my estate. So he can't. He's not an authority to change that. But yesterday we said the whole time that there's no real din that he has to give a dowry. The Chacham didn't make a takana that he has to give a dowry from his estate. They say it's a good advice, it's a nice thing, and a person should do it. It's a good thing, it's a proper thing, it's an appropriate thing in his lifetime and also after death. But it's only evaluating what he would have done if he would have been alive. And if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. In his lifetime also, we're not going to force him to give a dowry to his daughter. And even after death, there's no such takana. So that's what he means to say. That parnasa, the dowry is different than mazonos. If he would say, I give instructions not to give mazonos to my daughters, we don't listen. But if he says, don't give a dowry to my daughters, so we do listen, because parnasa is not like suba, it's not like the takanas chachamim. And at most, yesterday, it also was to figure out what he would have given, how much he would have given, if he would have given. So that's what he meant to say. So we figured it out. We got another two subjects on the way, which the Gemara is going to go into further about Mishabadim. Could you collect from fields that the Yisomim had sold, and also about taking from a Talmud? That's going to be the Gemara. Will continue also. But this is one halacha that seems to be agreed upon, that the dowry is not a takanas chachamim. It's only if he wants to.
The last thing is that you can't remember. What is that?
What is that? I'm sorry?
What it said?
Yes, that's what we're saying. Parnasa means dowry, the dowry, that's what we're saying. The whole Gemara is talking about the difference between mazonos and the dowry. So the mazonos of the daughters is a takana, and the dowry of the daughters is not a takana. It's just figuring out what he would have done.
So the maximum, the obligation is on actual zon.
Right. And the dowry is a good thing to do, and we do encourage him to do it. But if he says openly he doesn't want to give, so then we don't.
Can you just repeat what was it that we don't listen to him when he says what?
If he says I don't want my daughters to be supported to get food from my estate after I die,
He says I don't want, we don't listen. But if he says don't give, we do listen.
No, I didn't mean to say that. He says don't give. Don't give mazonos to my daughters.
You don't listen.
You don't listen.
I thought you said, but we do listen.
We do listen if he says don't give a dowry. Difference between the dowry and the mazonos. That's the whole Gemara's discussion. What's the difference between the dowry and the mazonos? Rebbe said that it's different. We're trying to figure out what's different about it. And this was a maskana. It's different that he can't object. By mazonos, he cannot object. By parnos, by dowry, he can object. Okay, new sugya. The Gemara starts on top of the page. Daf Samachtes 69. Top lines. So Rashi and Taisha say this means that Rav sent a question to Rebbe between the lines. I don't know what the case is exactly, but he sent a letter. Rashi says he sent a letter, but between the lines, he also asked him some questions. And Taisha says maybe it was one of the notes in between the different letters in the staple, whatever he stapled the pages together. In between, he threw in some questions. It doesn't say why this was a question that had to go between the lines. I don't know. It's not a usual.
It means try privately, you could say.
I thought it was a remez.
Whatever you want to say. Rashi says He sent him a letter, he gave it Shlomim, and he put this question in between the lines. Tosh says, Yerushalmi also says like that, Ben Hashitim, he brings before us the Ben Hanan that says, he asked him a lot of questions, that they were stapled together, through a zu, and between it, he put also this question also. We're not going to see anything that's going to be like dramatic about the question, like like any other question. I don't know what this. I don't know. You don't have this. You don't have this case usually. But that's the introduction to this Gemara. So Rav asked Rebbe a question. You don't find too often that Rav speaks to Rebbe. They did know each other, but here's a question. Rav must have been much younger. Rav asked a question to Rebbe in the letter. He asked him the following question. Okay, but there wasn't a wall between them. There was a generator. It was this was the yeah. This. Those are the words he asked him. What's the halacha? What does that mean? We didn't even know what it means. The brothers. That these are the brothers means that after the father died, so they got the nechasim and they got the estate. And now the question is something about the sisters, and they were mishabed. They were mishabed. So what does that mean? This simple words would have meant that they sold it. They got the Yerusha and they sold it. Now the question is, now can they do we take out from the money that from the estate that they sold in order to give to the daughters, to the sisters, parnasa, mazonos? What we just spoke about, we mentioned it in passing. Means the maskana pshat was something else, but this is the mishubah, the first choice that the Gemara spoke about. If you take from the sold nechasim that the Yorshim sold, so we said before that ma'asim b'chol yom atziyan the parnasa, be'em atziyan the mazonos. So we're going to go into that sugi now. It's one of the sugis that the Gemara passed up that wasn't the pshat what Rebbe said before. But now we're opening up the sugya. If the Yerushalayim sold the Yerusha, we take out? We take back from the buyers, from the Lukuchos, for the Parnasa or for the Mazonos of the sisters. So when Rebbe got the letter, Apriya was there by Rebbe when he got the letter. So Apriya asked Rebbe, what does Rav mean to ask? Machro or Mishkano? There are two ways how you can make a shibud. One is that he sold it. They sold it. That simple way is they sold it. And now the question is there a lien on it to be able to collect it back? Mishkano is a similar thing that he didn't actually sell it, but they made it as a collateral. That which is very similar. That they took a loan on a collateral. They didn't pay back the loan, and now that so the one who he foreclosed on that estate because they didn't get his loan back, and now you come back and say, but even though he gave it to you as the collateral for your loan, but there are sisters that are supposed to be getting dowry and mazonos from that estate. So can we take it back from him? So both of them are ways of being mishabed. One is to sell it, and now he sold the field that has a lien on it, or you used it as a mashkon. You used the field that has a lien on it that they're supposed to be supported from that. You used it as a collateral, and now it was foreclosed, and now you want to take it back and say there's a lien on it. So that was Rabbi asked Rebbe, what does Rav mean to ask? Amalei, man, there's no difference. Whatever the question, whatever he meant to ask, but the answer is Bein Machra, Bein Mishkano, Mosian the Panasa, Bein Mosian the Mazanos. This is the quote we said before, number base that we just quoted before. We did before was in blue and now it's in yellow. Mosian the Panasa, Bein Mosian the Mazanos. That if the Yarshim sold or made it to be a collateral, that the estate that they Yarshim, so you do go back and take it back, give it back to the sisters for the dowry, but you don't go back to take it for their food. No, he knows. So very nice. So the Gemara, that's what I said before, that by Mazonos, you have to take into consideration the buyers because they don't know how much the sisters are eventually going to eat up. So it's making too difficult for the Yorshim to be able to sell their fields because the buyers are going to be scared to buy it because there's a indefinite, unlimited commitment on it that they don't know how much it's going to be. But the Parnasa, the Gemara says, that's a fine thing. Like we said, Isha Nechasim, it's a tenth. He knows how many daughters he has. So then the Yorshim are not held back from selling all of their properties as long as they leave alone whatever there's a lien on. And when they do sell what there's a lien on, the buyer is supposed to know that. I mean, people nowadays, surely that everything's recorded. You can find out if there's a lien on something. Those days also, things had a call. There was publicized and things are written in documents. People talk. And they would know that this person has this estate that's being sold. It was a Yerusha that.
Why go to the buyer? The buyer is like.
Yeah, he doesn't have.
The buyer should have known, okay, but he didn't. He has nothing to do with the system.
No, this is the thing that is. This is the estate that they have a lien, that the daughters have a lien on. That's the Yorshim, their own money. That they're not obligated to support it from their own money, only from the money that they that they got the inheritance from. It's true, of course, that when the buyer is going to get reimbursed, the buyers go back to the seller and say, you sold us a lemon, you know.
Oh, they
And
will get
yeah, they get
Oh, I see.
reimbursed.
Oh, I see.
But that's a whole tircha, you know, to go to Besdin to get reimbursed. But they have a right, like any time, to lien. Whenever something's taken away from you because of a lien, so you go back and say, I need my money back. But here's the question: if you could go back to the buyers and say that there's a lien on this and you can't keep it, you know, you go to the Besdin and fight it out with the one who sold it to you because he wasn't supposed to sell to you. There's a lien on it. So he said the chiluk is no difference what kind of how they made the shibud by means how they what's the word shibdu, either they sold it or they gave it as a collateral and it was taken for the loan. Now that the daughters are coming to demand dowry and mazonos, you do take it away from the lukuchos in order to give them the dowry. And Rashi explained because it's a set amount, the buyers could know how much it's going to be, so they should know to be careful not to buy whatever is within the range of the parnasa that's necessary. And what's in the mazonos, you don't take it away from the buyers if whatever you want to give to mazonos, because that's an unlimited amount. This Rashi, this is extra credit to know the reason. The reason it says over there in Gittin, Rashi brings down because it's tikkun olam, because it's a davar she'en lo kitzvah. It's not a set amount. We don't know how much they're going to be eating. Okay, that's also true. You have to go. We're going to have to go to tzedakah for that. That's true. They're not supposed to. They shouldn't have sold it if they don't have money to give to the daughter sisters. But if they did sell it, so there's a tikkun olam in order to make that people should be able to shuk. The buying and selling of real estate shouldn't be held back because people are scared to buy this thing because they never know if it's going to be taken away from them. So that's the tikkun olam. So that was Rebbe's opinion. We'll see in the parnasa, we'll see in the mazonos. The next couple of lines I made in parentheses just to show that we're going to get back to Rabbi Yochanan, who argues maybe. But so far we said Rebbe. This was Rebbe so far. Top line Rebbe. We'll see in the parnasa, we'll see in the mazonos. Rabbi asked him a question in a letter, and I wasn't sure what the question was exactly, mashkon or mecher. And Rebbe said it doesn't make a difference what the question is. Either way, we'll see in the parnasa and we'll see in the mazonos. In about 10 lines, we're going to continue. Rabbi Yochanan might argue, but before we get there, the Gemara wants to know why Rav didn't write his question clearly. It means it was questionable what he meant to say. Did he mean mecher or mashkin? Rebbe happened to say it doesn't make a difference, but he didn't write in his question what he meant to say. He used very vague term that he said achin sheshivdu. Usually you would say achin shemochru, achin shemishkenu. So the Gemara is going to say why he wrote it in a vague way. And the answer is going to be because he had both questions. Which one is more mistaber? If it's a mecher, it's more reason that it should not be able to take it back. And mashkin is more reason it should be able to take it back. And he had both questions, so he had to ask it in a vague way in order that Rebbe should answer both questions. He could have said specifically either or, but he wanted to ask shortly, briefly, in a way, concise, that he should get the answer on any side that the answer is going to be. The Gemara's question is, whatever his question was, he should have been more explicit. If he meant to ask about selling, that the Yorshim sold it, so he should have said, if they sold it, he shouldn't have said shibdu. He should have said machru. And if his question was about a mashkon, that the Yorshim gave it as a collateral for a loan, and it was collected by the lender, and that was the question. If they take it back for notice. So he should have said, why did he dafkin ambiguous way? Because he wanted Rebbe to be forced to answer both sides. Rav Tarvayu can be boiled. He really had both questions. He didn't know the halacha of machro. He didn't know the mishkano. For sovereign, and he thought, I'm going to write it as short as possible and make sure I get the right answer. If I'm only, which is more reason that he should not be able to. He should not be able to take it back. A sale is more than just more. So that's good. If the answer is going to be extreme answer, I'll know a cold game. And if the answer is going to be that you could take it from the buyers, you could take back from the buyers, and I would know cold skin mishkano. If he's going to say the extreme case, even if you sold it, you could take it back from the buyer. Surely you could take it back from the lender who foreclosed on this mashkan cold skin. But if it's going to say that by a mecher, by a sale, you can't take it back, I only know that much. I wouldn't know the case of Mishkano, because Mishkano is not such a big, is more of a chiddush to say that you cannot take it back. So therefore, I'm not going to just write machur. And the other way is also going to be the same thing. If I would only ask a question on the mashko, not on the mecher. So again, if it will be extreme answer, I'd have both answers. But if it's going to be on the other side, then I wouldn't know. If he's going to say even by a mashkon, you cannot take it back to give to the girls. Say kolshkein, if he sold it, you won't be able to take it back. But if he's going to tell me there instance by mashkin, you could take it back. I still wouldn't know the answer. If he sold it, maybe you cannot take it back. So therefore, that's why I'll write something ambiguous, which includes both terms. And this way he's going to be forced to answer me both. And that's what Rebbe said. I don't care what his question was, because the answer is in both cases, Makro Mishkano, sometimes Motzian, sometimes Ein Motzian, and Motzian le Parnasa, Ein Motzian le Mazonos. So that it can have either implication. It can be mashma here, this way, or that way. So therefore, that's why he didn't even, he wrote it so concise. He really knew what he's doing. He wasn't writing it ambiguous. He wrote it in an ambiguous way in order to get
All the answers.
what?
You want to understand both Machra and
Right. So you
Mashma.
right, because if you only say one, the other one wouldn't have been understood in some cases. Rabbi Victor Miller talks about this. Whenever the Gemara says a drush and a pasuk from the nuance, so he gives an example that there's a government that writes a letter to another government, no declaration from one government, and it's ambiguous. It wasn't like they wrote it between Mincha Marav, like scribble something and it's ambiguous. They sat over there, 25 people that were, ambassadors. They were all sitting down. How should we write it exactly? And it's made it ambiguous. They meant something. Why should be dafka understood in different ways? So Rav, when he wrote the question to Rebbe, he worded it dafka in a very short way, but it should be understood that it should get the answer in
The
all
answer
cases.
doesn't answer all the questions.
He answers both questions. He says, Vein machro, vein mishkano, motzian leparnasa, vein motzian lemazonos, motzian leparnasa, even if it was a mecher, and motzian lemazonos, even if it was a mashkin. That was all Rebbe. So again, just to keep okay, but leave out that point about mecher and mashkin. Back to the main point that he holds that you could collect back from the buyers if you're giving the dowry in order to give the dowry to the daughters, but you don't take out from the buyers in order to give for the mezonos. And now Rabbi Yochanan seems to argue. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, that you don't take back, even for the parnas, even for the dowry, you don't take it back. If they shouldn't have sold it, they're supposed to give dowry to their sisters. But if they did sell it, you don't take it back from the buyers. And Rabbi Yochanan seems to argue. Rabbi said you do. Everybody agrees and what's in the mazonos. But Rabbi said that for parnas you do take it back, and Rabbi Yochanan said not. Open machlokas. But the one is not sure if Rabbi Yochanan to argue was bigger than Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan lo shmi'alei had the Rabbi vi shmi'alei have a makabelei or do ma shmi'alei v'lo makabelei. Is it that Rabbi Yochanan did not hear what Rabbi, he didn't know what Rabbi said, and therefore he said that you don't take out from the buyers. But if you would have heard what Rabbi Hill said, he would have argued, he would have accepted. Or he heard it and he didn't accept it, and he's arguing. So is Rabbi Yochanan going to real argue and say that ein motziin leparnasa even after Rabbi said motziin leparnasa? Rabbi Yochanan. So officially, we don't give Rabbi Yochanan the title of a Tana, but it seems that you could argue. It's usually accepted that Amor cannot argue on a Tana. There are those that show some places that Amor does. It means it's not easy, and they try not to, but it's not that he cannot. It's not like it's impossible. Every business is supposed to do what they think. There's a question: how come? What authority does somebody have that the next generation cannot argue? The Torah is supposed to be a living Torah throughout all the generations, and what stops somebody from arguing? If they're as great in Torah, they should be able to argue. So that's a sugya. That's another sugya. Who's allowed to argue? But you do find that here, the Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan would be able to argue. Tashma. So what's what we have to figure out if Rabbi Yochanan is arguing on Rabbi Lamaisa or not? He seems to have argued, but it was maybe only argued because he didn't know what Rabbi said. After he found out Rabbi said, maybe he gave in. Tashma, the itma. A person died and he left over to his daughters and his son. And of course, the son Yarshins and the daughters are supposed to get dowry and food. And the first one got married, and she took what's coming to her. She got married after the father died, and she's supposed to get a tenth of the estate. As we said before, if you don't know how to evaluate the father, you give a standard tenth. And she got married, and she took a tenth of the estate. And what are we waiting for now? That the second daughter should get married, and she'll take also a tenth. Before the second daughter married, the son died. The son has no Yorshim. He didn't have any sons. So the closest Yorshim for this son were his sisters. Means the person dies, it goes to his descendants, sons. If there are no sons, to his daughters. If not sons and daughters, it goes to his father. If there's no father, it goes to his children, which are the brothers and the sisters. And this son only had sisters. He had 2 sisters. That was the whole family now. So the sisters aren't going to Yarshim.
So wouldn't it be the same, like, the sisters think of them like brothers and put aside for this one sister?
So Leib Yaakov is saying that she should get
She
her
should have
tenth.
put aside
Besides the
before
Yerusha,
Yarsha.
before they divide the Yerusha, she's eligible to a tenth of the, just like her sister got a tenth of the estate, and then we'll divide the rest. That's the question. Rabbi Yochanan, Shnia Vitra, the second one loses. They just divide the Yerusha that's left. The first one got the 10th dowry, second one doesn't get any dowry, she just gets the Yerusha. That what happened. So far, we don't see our question. Let's see further. Rabbi Chanina. He said that even if it was sold, you could take it back. If the Yorshim had sold the estate, you take it back from the buyers in order to give it to the dowry. So too, it's not that the Yorish sold it, the Yorish died. Means there are 2 ways that you hold that something gets onto I don't know the English words in here. I'm ignorant in these terms, but he sold it, and now you're going to collect it back. There's also, if he dies and you go to the Yorshim, means there are 2 ways when someone has a lien on something. As long as the person is the borrower is still there, so he goes to the borrower and you owe me money. The issue of the lien is relevant if he sells it or if he dies and it goes to somebody else. When he sells it, it goes to the buyer. Then he knocks on the buyer's door and says, the thing that you bought, there's a lien on it. Or if the borrower dies and his estate goes to the next generation, to the Yorshim, he knocks on the door of the Yorshim and says that it's very nice that you inherited, but I have a lien on it because your father owed me money. So there are 2 issues, the selling and dying. Selling and goes to the buyers, and dying goes to the Yorshim. Here, that's what happened over here. We
But I
talked
thought that the Yarshim would have to give it back if there's a lien on it. Before they get Yarshim.
but that's what we're talking about, that the first case talking about if he sold it, right? What does Motziah Parnasa mean? That even if they sold it,
The Parnas is the dowry.
the dowry, and the Yorshim,
Motzi means they
Motziah, you take it
out
back from the buyers.
Yeah,
And therefore, Rabbi Chanina is telling Rabbi Yochanan that the same way you take it back from the buyers, you take it back from the Yorshim also. The Yorshim of the Yorshim. Over here, what happened over here? Maybe my words are not so clear. The Yorshim of the Yorshim, the next generation. Here, the father died. And the Yorshim, we'll call him Reuven, the first generation over here. He had a sister. He had 2 sisters.
yeah.
So he's supposed to get the Yerusha, and the sisters are supposed to get a dowry. If he would have sold it, what if he would have sold it? So he said, Rebbe holds, you take it out. Motzi, go back to the buyers and say they have to go to the dowry. And now he didn't sell it, but he died. And it goes, let's say it goes to a different, let's say not to the sister. Let's say he had Yorshim. Let's say it's not generation. So do you take out from the Yorshim and say there's a lien on this? Because your
Oh, it's
father's
once removed.
sisters, right? So it's the same thing as a buyer. The Yorish is the same thing as a buyer. The same way, the whole Nidon, this whole subject about taking it back from the buyers is also taking back from the Yorshim. We told the Yorshim there's a lien on this. So Rabbi Chanina told, where is this Rabbi Chanina? Rabbi Chanina told Rabbi Yochanan, even a bigger Chiddush, Motziah leParnasa. If the Yorish would have the sons, the brothers over here, right? The sons, the brothers that would have sold it, we would take it back from the buyers in order to give the dowry to the sisters. So too, if he died and it went to his Yorshim, we should take it back from the Yorshim, we give it back to the sisters. Here it happens to be that the sister is the Yorish. I don't know the Yorshim. It's not going to the next generation, it's going to the siblings.
Mhm.
But we tell him, this is what Levi Yaakov asked, that he should take it away from the Yorshim in order to give the dowry. So the sister says, besides being with 2 sisters, but also I'm eligible still for a dowry. I didn't get it yet.
Yeah.
So take away from the Yorish in order to give it for the dowry. That was the discussion between Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan.
So he
Rabbi
doesn't
Yochanan-
agree with it.
You're right, he doesn't agree.
That's
Rabbi
what
Yochanan,
Marta is-
what?
And you say Shnei
Ah, Tam B'Shnei Vitra, you're saying that the second one loses. Why should she lose? If you take it away from the buyers, you take it away from the Yorshim also. So the Yorshim happens to be the sister, and she says, I'm eligible to get the dowry, and I'm taking it away from you. That was the discussion.
If there was no brother, there was just 2 sisters.
Then they would have been the Yorshim themselves.
But if one of them got 10%.
No, then no percent. If there only would be 2 sisters, so they're Yorshim, and there's nothing to do with any dowry. They get the Yorshim.
One of them got married.
Yes.
She got the dowry.
Why? Because there was a brother. So they didn't get any inheritance. They didn't inherit their father. They're not coming to inherit their brother. When the father died, if they would be only sisters, so each one gets the half of the Yerusha and it's finished. Do what you want with it. It's all your money. But now that there's a son who's Yashining, so they don't get that inheritance. But they get a schus to get a dowry. And the first one got the dowry, and then the brother died. And he was the sole inheritor. He died, and it goes to his Yorshim. His Yorshim happens to be his sisters. And one of the sisters got the dowry already. One of the sisters didn't get the dowry. And we're talking about if the sister didn't get the dowry, could get the dowry besides dividing the Yerusha. And if Rebbe says she loses.
Rabbi Yochanan is saying, in a sense, it's sort of like if the two sisters were the only Yorshim. Saying like that?
No. If they're the only Yorshim, there's nothing to talk about.
He's saying like this too. So the fact that when the brother dies,
but the brother
there's
died.
going to be Yerusha. So forget it, Mavatir on the thing and just take your.
Not about it because we do about it because you lost it. Why do you lose it? Because it went on like as if to say if the brother would have, let's say in the Gemara steps, if the Yoresh, the brother, would have sold it, would he be able to take it back? Rebbe Yochanan might have said not.
I see.
Because it's not in his, it isn't for him anymore. You go right. So the same thing. If he died and it went on to the next generation, it's going back to the, but it happens to be going to his Yorshim. So you don't have any right to collect. That's what Yochanan seemed to say. And Chanina said you could take away from the buyers. The same way you can take away from the buyers, you can take away from the Yorshim.
Mhm.
That's what the discussion was over there. Now the Gemara is going to glean out of this. Does Rabbi Yochanan agree to Rebbe or not? Rabbi Yochanan seemed to have argued, right? He said, "Ein motzian." On this whole principle that Rabbi Chanina is screaming, "Motzian leparnasa," Rabbi Yochanan said in the blue over here, "Ein motzian." So, did he hear about Rabbi's psak or not? Not a Gemara start. Till now,
Didn't we? Oh yeah, the Emis.
now we're up to. Till now was the discussion.
Emis is still ready to talk.
Who? No. Not a Gemara is taking over. Till now, let's color this or something. Some kind of colors over here. This was the.
So Emi said, I thought that meant like if it's like what Rabbi Yochanan said.
No, that's not. No. All this is the quote. That's it. That's the quote. There was an issue about two daughters and a son. The first one got the dowry, second one didn't.
Yeah, right.
Son died. The Yochanan said the second one loses.
That's
Rabbi Chanina
yeah,
told him that if you motzian leparnasa, Rabbi Chanina came at a time that motzian leparnasa. So how could you say shnia vitra? End of discussion. Now the Gemara is taking over. Im Isa.
All that was a quote in a way, right?
It was Itmar. No, it's not a price. It's Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina. It's a Itmar. It's a statement, if I'm not wrong, a discussion between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina. Now the Gemara is going to analyze. Im Isa, if it's true, name what's true. Name alay man amra. If he didn't hear about it.
If what is true?
If it's I'll say better. If it's true that Rabbi Yochanan is arguing on Rabbi.
I see.
That was our question. The question was, does Rabbi Yochanan argue or not? Is Rabbi Yochanan arguing or is he not arguing? If he's arguing, he should say, like, why do I care what's in the panas? That's not true. He should have said, man number. Who says that? I don't agree. If he means to argue on Rebbe, he should have said, I don't agree. It must be that he does agree. Does Rashi say that? Rashi says, one second, I'm making I'm sorry. I said it wrong. Take it back. The Gemara is proving that he does argue. And therefore he didn't retract. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I said it with the wrong nigan even. He should have said, I didn't know that, like my number. I didn't know that.
Well, what's Emis?
If it's true, let's figure out which way it is. If it's true that he does not argue, he just said it so because he didn't know about it. This was Vin Misa, that lo shmi alei, and if he would have heard about it, he would have accepted it. So then, and now that Rabbi Chanina told him it, now we heard about it. The Gemara is not to say he didn't know about it. That's why he said ein motzia. And now that he heard about it, he just said, "Oh, man, I didn't know that. Who told it? Who told us that? Oh, I didn't know. I take it back." He should have given in because it's a good kasha. Rabbi says motzia lepanas, and he's agreeing. The Gemara wants to prove that he knew about. That Rebbe holds Motzin Leparnasa, but Rebbe Yochanan holds a Motzin Leparnasa. So he wasn't impressed with Rebbe Chanina's kasha. Rebbe Chanina is going with Rebbe. that you could take out of the buyer. So too you can take out of the Yorshim. But the Yochanan holds that you can't take out of from the buyers, and therefore you can take out of the Yorshim also. That's why he's arguing and says that the Shniya Vitra, that the second one loses. That's the Gemara's thinks that that's a proof that Rabbi Yochanan must be arguing. He argues. It isn't just because he heard it, then he's going to fall down and say, okay, if Rabbi said so, I agree. If that would have been, then he should have given in over here. Rabbi Chanina argued. Rabbi Yochanan didn't give in. He didn't give in. He still holds Shniya Vitra. And the Gemara is saying, once he heard Rabbi Chanina say over from Rabbi Moshe Leparnasa, does he agree to him? If he would agree, then he should have given in. He said, you're right. It must be that Rabbi Yochanan does not agree to Rabbi. So Rabbi Chanina asked him, Akasha, Moshe Leparnasa, he doesn't give in because he doesn't agree. He says, "Ein Moshe
If you would
Leparnasa."
have said man amr, like, where did you hear this? Is that-
Who said it? That means, oh, I didn't know that. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh, like, I didn't know that. And I've heard about that before. And now you're telling me, okay, I give in. Moshe Leparnasa. And you're right that she doesn't lose it. She doesn't lose it. The same way take away from the Lekuchos, you take away from the Yorshim. But now the Gemara is going to say no. The Gemara is going to back it up and say, no, it could be that he
really didn't hear.
he did not hear. And
Even though he didn't say man.
right. But he didn't give it anyway. The maybe he really didn't hear about it. And when he heard about it, he did accept it. But he still holds it's not a kasha. Means is this a kasha that if you hold Motzian Leparnas, if they would sell it, you can take it back from the buyers? Is it also true that if the sister Yarshin from her brother, you can take away from her also? But Chanina said it's the same thing. Even if they would have sold it, you could take it away from the buyers. So if the son died and now it goes to the sisters, you can take it away also. But Rabbi Yochanan, there's a difference. Really, he didn't know about it. Once he heard about it, he accepted it. He accepts what Motzian Leparnasa. But still,
would be if he heard it.
and when he heard it,
And when he heard,
he accepted it. And he agrees to Rebbe, Motzian Leparnasa. So how come here he argues, like this case, of the two sisters and the brother? Here, she has to get a dowry because she has plenty of money. We tell her, you need a dowry, you want to take the 10th, you're being nitpicky, you want a dowry, you want a 10% for the dowry, you just got to have the Yerusha. Like you have money, get married, be happy, live happily ever after. Like, what do you need the money for? Is anybody happy with that?
What can you tell the buyers of the property that they can keep it because the daughter has enough money?
No, the question is, we're talking to the daughter. The daughter's talking with her sister.
I understand, but
By the buyers, Motzian Leparnasa. But that they have a supposed to
you
put
should
it
be
down.
able to tell the daughter the same thing. Don't bother the buyer. He
Because-
bought your stuff. You just inherited $1 million. What do you need another 100,000 for that this
Good.
guy owes you? I mean,
So the Gemara seems
be
to
happy.
the Gemara seems to ask the question, or even not the buyer, you can talk about the Yarshim alone. Let the brother tell the sister, if you have a lot of money, you're a rich person.
it sounds like something the married sister would say.
That sounds like very socialist.
You're gonna nitpick, well, let's say it's $100,000, that's $10,000. I can use $5,000. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, like,
So
you're
the-
gonna nitpick over 10,000? That's nice for the married sister to say.
So the Gemara seems to say what everybody's saying. First white line. Amalei Rav Yemal Rabashi Elamiyata Ashkechom Etzia Balma Diika Ravach Beisach Inami Dela Gina Lesim Lechasim. She found a treasure. She won the lottery. She has money. Whatever.
Where did you end?
Second wide line.
5 different lines. What was the last word?
Isun Nechasim.
What?
Yeah, and the word Nechasim is the last word. Elamai, if you're right, that
Nechas.
if you're right that if she has money, she's not entitled to the dowry. This 10% from the father. If she would have found some Messiah, that she has plenty of money. Are you also going to say you don't give her a tenth of the estate? That's not a cheshbon. She has a takana. You give her a tenth of the estate, no matter how her personal business. Just because she got a Yerusha, now you're going to take it away. Amalei, no, I mean, if she gets money from this estate, means the father, it's from the father's estate. So the whole takana of the giving the 10% is only that the sons are yarshining and the daughters don't have anything. So they made a takana that the father would have given a dowry, so you give a dowry also. But here, that she's getting the estate of the father. This happens to be a case where the Yarshim are the sisters. There's no other Yarshim. So it's not similar to the buyers or other Yarshim down the family. Then she has a right to get her 10%. But if it's her herself who got a Yerusha now from the father, and that's time she won money, or and the uncle died, she got from the father. So then I guess the swar is going to be, because the whole point is if the father would have given, the father in this case would have said, it doesn't make it. We're talking about she has enough money to get married from it. She's getting half the Yerusha. That's enough money to get married. It's more than 10%. So Is
There's
the-
daughters or there's just the one daughter?
The story was there were two daughters and a son, and the son died, and now the daughters are deciding if she should get a dowry or not. So we told her, you got a Yerusha, it's fine. You got of the 90% that's left, you got now half of that. So 45%, that's fine. You don't need, you don't have to argue on the 10%.
Between you two daughters.
Right, and even though if she would have gotten money, $1 million from someplace else, that wouldn't be a timer because from the father's estate, he gives a dowry. But if she got from the father's estate, then this is far to say that even though Matziyah Parnasa, but you're not going to take from this one. That's the end of the sugya. What happened if we zoom out? Yes,
What brought this,
this is the story in the green over here. This was a machlokes of Chanina B'Yochanan, and we're trying to figure out what the B'Yochanan held. The B'Yochanan held that the Shnia Vitra, the second one loses her 10% dowry. The question is why? The Gemara thought because he holds ein motzi in the parnasa. He holds that once it went on because of selling it or because of yarshining, she loses it. The Gemara says not the shot. He holds even though motzi in the parnasa, he agrees to Rebbe maybe motzi in the parnasa. But here that she's getting the Yerusha, there's no reason to give her a dowry.
Why?
Because if the father, I'll say it in my own words, if the father would be here, he would tell the daughter, my dear daughter, I'm giving you 45% of my estate. You want another 10%? Fine.
If the father.
Oh, 10.
She only wants. the
She
equal
wants-
Amount that the other one got. She
Right.
wants the same as the other daughter.
Which is
Right.
more.
50-50.
They're gonna give 50, we're gonna give 50-50 without that.
Right.
Of the, okay,
She would want five.
you're
half
right,
of her
you're right.
10%.
Whatever's left now,
Right.
besides the 10% that was taken away already, good. Again,
If I were alive.
the father would tell the daughter, you don't need my 10% dowry from my estate. I'm giving you 45, 50% of my estate. So you need also that part also. The whole story is what the father would have given. The Gemara doesn't say the words that I'm saying, but I'm translating it like that. That from the same lechasim, from the same estate of the father, she's getting half the Yerusha, so we don't have to give her the dowry.
We still hold by Motzi.
Right, right. So what happened? The Gemara, if we just take the, without everything else, just take out, it was Rebbe that said Motzina Parnasa. That was Rebbe that said that if the sons, the ones who Yarshin, they sold it, or you could talk about Yerusha also, they died and went on to the next generation, you take it back and give the dowry to the daughters. That's what Rebbe said. The Yochanan said Ein Motzina the Parnasa. He said Ein Motzina. The question was if Rabbi Yochanan argues, or he didn't know what Rebbe said, but he would have given in. And the Gemara leaves it as a question. We don't know. Maybe we do find that someone was arguing with Rabbi Yochanan and saying Motzila Parnasa, and he argued. He was arguing on that. Was he arguing because he holds in Motzila Parnasa, or he meant to say that even though Motzila Parnasa, this is an exception because she's getting Yerusha and she doesn't need the dowry. So the Gemara leaves it as a question. Again, what happened? Rebbe says Ein Motzila Parnasa, and we're not sure if Rabbi Yochanan argues. That's in a nutshell. That's what happened over here. New Gemara, third wide line. Amar Amema. I made it 2 dots because it's a new sugi. Amar Amema. Bas, Yoreshes Havia. Now we're talking about the dowry, that the 10% dowry that the daughters are supposed to get. Do you look at it as if she's getting an inheritance? Like, Allah, what kind of parameter do we put it into? Do we give it as if it's a Yerusha? Of course she doesn't Yarshin. Daughters don't Yarshin when they are sons. But now that we made a takana that she gets the dowry, do we look at it as if it's a Yerusha? Or do we look at it as if not that she's owed the money, but not that she got a Yerusha? The Gemara talks about what will be the difference. Amalei Rav Ashi Lamema.
Are we saying that the Mema are saying that the dowry is like a Yerusha?
Yes, the daughter who gets the dowry is a Yeresha. She becomes an inheritor on the 10% that she gets for the dowry. Amalei Rav Ashi Lamema. Rav Ashi said to Amema, who said this, Ilu boy l'sluka b'zuzei achinam de l'masi l'sluka. If the sons, the brothers, the ones who yashin, they want to give her money. They have a cheshbon. How much is the estate? $100,000 was the estate, and 10% is 10,000. So they say, we don't want to give you the land of the estate. We want to give you $10,000. We'll give you money instead. Do they have a right to do that? Kind of, you look.
No, on this thing.
What's the sukkah?
That the daughter is supposed to get 10% of the estate for the dowry, and the sons, the brothers, they say that we'll give you money instead. Don't take the estate, 10%, $10,000 of a piece of land from the estate. We have cash. We want to give you $10,000 and get married. Is she about to say, I want the piece of land from the estate? Does she have such a right? What?
Saluka means
To push her away. They want to push her away. They want to set it, put her aside and say, we'll give you 10,000. Does she have any schus to get land?
Ah,
The whole takana to give a dowry has to do with the money. It doesn't have to do with Yerusha. She doesn't have any right to Yarshim. The Bashi is saying it's not a Yerusha. She has a takana to get money to get married from 10% of the value of the Yerusha. That has something to do with the Yerusha. She's not a Yoresh. So he said, no, Amalei in. Yes, she could say, I want land. He's making her into a Yoresh. Of course, it's only the Rabbanan. But once the Rabbanan made this takana that she gets 10% for a dowry, so she becomes a Yoresh and she has a right to get the Yerusha. And he has another question. It seems Rashi says that by Yorshim, each one has a right to get a piece of each piece of land. He has their father had different pieces of land, different cities.
Right.
So the Yorshim have a right to a part of each one. They divide each one. If there are two sons, they divide each one. You can't say one can't say to the other one, I want to take these, you take those. Each one has a right to have. But here also you're going to say that if they want to give her one piece of land of the Yerusha, can she say I want a piece from all a tenth of each one of each pair? So he said, right.
Makes no sense.
So by Yarshim they could do it.
I understand it, but once she does it, she's not only not doing good for the brothers,
That's
she's
that.
doing less for herself.
That's already personal business. What's good? That's personal
Right, but
business.
You gotta shit
That-
down,
but-
and you're gonna listen to it.
Brothers could do that. You can say brothers also. They has 10 fields, and they wanted. The brother says, "I want the 10 brothers, whatever," and each one is zocha to get a tenth of each field. And you say, "Let's get together and make some sense out of this." What you can do with it? Okay, that's already personal. But Ikar din, they have a chelik in each piece of land. So is she called the Yoresh that you can't force her to take one piece of land? So he said, yeah, she has a right if she wants
I'm
to.
asking a question. Why is she able to Yorish land if she's only obligated to give him money?
So
Why
that's
not say-
that's what we're talking about. That is the
So-
subject.
so
Rambam
since
says
we
that they
were-
gave her a din of a Yoresh. The Takana Rabbana that says that she gets a dowry, they made that into Yerusha. And just like Yoresh has these rights, he also has these rights. That was a Mema. Levi Yaakov?
The sluka here is that instead of taking land, we'll give you money. Is that what we're saying?
Right.
And it means like to go up,
To push her away, like there's a lake, to push her away by giving her, take this and
push her off with
Yeah.
money.
yeah.
And,
It's the same value, but they want the Yerusha and she wants the Yerusha land.
and is it a question or we're saying hachinami
Yeah. Chanami Tlamosim is selling. He says, yeah. How can He can't. Yes, and how about if you want one land also?
And then the in is,
Is that
Yes,
she has the
yes.
right. Yes, she cannot. They cannot push her away. They cannot push her away. Ravashi argues. Ravashi tried to.
Lomatzin Meselik means you can't push her away.
Can you not push her away? You have to do it the right. You have to do it right digging. So he said, yes, you cannot push her away. So that was Amema. Ravashi tried to challenge him, but he didn't get challenged. But Ravashi argues. Ravashi Amar Bas Balas Chobi. She's not considered a Yoresh. She's considered that she's owed money, and you could give her money. You just have to give her the value of the 10%, not the Yerusha. And Amema himself also retracted. Amema also retracted and agrees to Ravashi that you just have to give the value of the 10%. Now, how do you know that he retracted? Dam Rabbi Yumi, Rabbi Nechumi, have Kim the Kamei de Amema, Vasoi Hayitza the Kamei, to have a Kavoy, Isen Chasim. Rabbi Yumi said, Rabbi Yumi, the son of Rabbi Nechumi, said, I was standing in front of Amema, that's our subject, Amema, and a woman came before him that she was demanding a tenth of the Nechasim for the dowry. And I was able to tell from Amema, if the sons would have the brothers would have wanted to give her money, they would have had the right. How did I see that? I heard the brothers telling the sister, if we would have money, we would give you money. And Amema didn't say anything. Ishtik, the dying was there. He heard the litigants talking about themselves, and he didn't say anything. And they said, if we'd have money, we'd give you money. And he didn't object. The low he didn't say anything. That means he would have agreed. So you see that Amema also agrees that if they want to give money, they can give money.
Maybe he stayed quiet because they said, if we would have, but not we're going to. You know what I'm saying? He had nothing to say.
But he could have said that you wouldn't be able to give him money even if you had money. But they said a wrong halacha. They said the halacha that in theoretical, you're right, it's theoretical. They said if we would have, it's only theoretical. But if the dying, here Tysus points out that if you hear one of the litigants saying something even theoretical, and it's wrong, you have to say that's wrong. If he's quiet, people take that to mean that he admits to them, that he's saying that they're right. That's what Tysus seems to say.
So what's it upshot that yes, they can force her to take the money.
Right. That's the halacha.
So we were right to argue it. Because
Yes.
it seems-
You hold like Ravashi. Amema said not. Ravashi first tried to challenge him. He didn't get challenged. Ravashi argues. Lamaisa Amema also gave in. How do we know? Because when they were talking in front of in the Bezdin, in front of him, someone said such a thing and he didn't protest, that means that he agrees.
And it's not a Yerusha.
It's not a Yerusha, right? It's not a Yerusha. And now the Gemara says another question.
Do we have a hashta?
Yeah, new subject. Still a question. She's considered a creditor. She's owed money. But is she does she owed money from the father? Do we look at it as if the father owes her money or the brothers owe her money? That if she's considered the Balchov of the brothers, so then they owe her money, and she, like any Balchov, is entitled to take the grade, what do you call baininess? Medium quality. Meaning that the Balchov is entitled to collect from the real estate, from the lands of the borrower, not the best fields, not grade A and not grade C, grade B.
And the Maimer was the Dayan in the case that followed?
Yes.
So wait a minute, he himself was posking.
That's what we said.
That was the Hadar.
Here the case is that here the question is not that
How
it's
do
about.
we know that the Maimer was the Dayan?
That's the story over there. That's the story. That's what it says over there. That's the whole story of the 2 lines over there.
So again, l'may nafkamina.
What's the difference if she's considered the Balchov of the father or the Balchov of the brothers? Who owes her money, the father or the brothers? The dead father or the live brothers?
Well, he's a dead father, so surely it belongs in his brother's hand. They got to the.
But then it means that your father happens to be my father also. Your father owes me money, and the Gemara says nafkamina, because if you're collecting from the Yorshim, from the Yisomim, the chov that the father owed, so then you have to make a shvua, you have to swear that I didn't get paid, and also only entitled to ziburis. That's the din of collecting from the Yisomim, from the next generation. But if they're the Baldabar, she has less rights if it's from the father. If it's from the brothers, so then it's beinin shalom b'shvua. Then you owe me money. Somebody comes over, the creditor comes over to the one in debt, to the, how do you call him? The creditor and the debtor. So the creditor says, you owe me money. And he agrees. So they pay baininess. He's allowed to collect baininess, and also he doesn't have to swear. But if someone comes over and says that your father owes me money, your dead father owes me money, so then he's only entitled to take ziburis, only the grade C, and also he has to make a shvua that he wasn't paid. So how do you look at it? This girl who's getting a dowry, is she considered the balchov of the brothers, and then she's entitled to baininess without a shvua? Or is she considered the creditor of the father, and she's only entitled to collect from the brothers only ziburis with the shvua? What's the halacha? Tashma derivina advei lebrate de Ravashi mimar brei de Ravashi baininess shelo b'shvua mibrei de Rav Sama brei de Ravashi ziburis b'shvua. You have a case history of what Ravina did. Ravashi had 2 sons and a daughter, and he died without marrying off the daughter. So there were 2 brothers, but one of the brothers also died before Ravashi died. Before Ravashi died, it seemed that one of the sons died. Rav Sama, the son of Ravashi, died, and he had a son. Ravashi had a grandson. Again, Ravashi had a son, Rav Sama, who died, and he had a son, and he also had another son, Mar Brei de Ravashi, who was still alive. And then Ravashi died, and his daughter was not yet married. So she's supposed to get dowry, right? 10% from the Yerusha. Who got the Yerusha? The son and the grandson.
The grandson gets the equal.
Right. If one of the sons died, it goes to his Yoshim. So they divide the Yerusha in half, but they have to give 10% to the daughter. So it says over there that he gave to the daughter from the live son, baininess shelo b'shvua, because it's considered a creditor of the brother, not of the father. If it would have been considered the creditor of the father, then it would have to be ziburis with a shvua, even from the brother, and from the nephew, from the next generation. That's surely only because of the father. The grandson is only giving because it was my father's Yerusha. So then ziburis b'shvua. That part wasn't the chiddush. The chiddush was this part, that the one that the brother you collect from, the live brother, that's considered your creditor. The woman, the sister who's collecting the dowry from her brother, is considered his creditor, and therefore she collects without a shvua, baininess. If it would be considered the father's creditor, then it will be ziburis with the shvua. Right, she's collecting the, but there she's considered the next generation. She has to make any from nechsi yisam and the shvua, only ziburis. When she's collecting from the Yorshim, so then she only can get ziburis.
So this is your right baya, that's the issue
That's-
actually comes from this brother.
Right, good. That's the, this is the true one. That's the Achi. It's not the Balchov of the father, it's Balchov of the brothers. Next question. More stories about similar issues, related topics. Shalach lei Rav V'nechemia b'nei Rav Yosef l'Rabba bar Rav Huna, Zuta, min Arda. This Amora sent to that Amora. Ki yasi hach itza l'kamoch, when this, I mean, he sent a letter with a woman. It means there was a case of a woman who's supposed to get a dowry from her father's estate, and I guess it was 2 different cities. He said the Zion sent a letter back home with the woman that this woman is eligible to get a dowry from the estate that's in your city. When this woman comes before you, give her a tenth of the nechasim, afilu me'etz trubla, even from the trubla. Trubla, Rashi says, means it's part of the mill. Right? It's something which is a question if it's considered karka or not. Means this more seems to be going that you're only eligible to collect the dowry from karka and not from metalkim. Now we're changing subjects now. I should have made a stop over here. The Gemara said before had 2 subjects. Till now we're talking about collecting the dowry from the Mishubadim. That was the whole subject now, to collect from the buyers, from the Yorshim. Now we're going on to this subject about metalkali. Are you eligible to collect parnasa from metalkali only from karka? So Agamor said that parnasa is from metalkalim. That's what the Gemara said before. But here the Gemara says only from karka. We're going to see the subject soon. Only from karka, and therefore he said, but the millstone is also considered karka. It's connected to the ground. It's also considered karka.
That's true.
Right. Rashi says it's trubla, moshav amas harechaim. It's the base of the mill. So that's considered karka.
Where's the word it's pointed out?
It's trubla. Here it is. First one on the line is trubla.
That's called what, the base?
The base of the mill, stone mill. So it's considered karka. If it would be metalcom, he wouldn't have taken it. New
Well,
Gemara.
it's the base. If it was a top stone, it wouldn't be.
Okay,
2
good,
stones,
good.
only the bottom.
good. Amr Abashi, Kavina Bear of Kana, have Magvina Apilo Ma'amla the basin. He's also seems to hold that only collecting karka, not from a taltalim, for the dowry of the daughters. And he said when we were by the Yeshiva of Rav Kana, we would have paskin to collect for the dowry even from the rent. The rent, there's rent coming in from a house. Is that considered karka metaltalim? So the house is karka. So even the rent that it generates is also considered karka, and that also could go for the dowry money. New Gemara. This is interesting Gemara. A lot of Aganat over here. Shalach le Rav Ana. This is a Musar kind of a story. Shalach le Derech Eretz kind of story. Shalach le Rav Ana le Rav Huna. Rav Ana sent to Rav Huna a letter. He said in the letter, Huna Chavrin Shalom. Shalom, Huna, our friend. He Rav Ana referred to Rav Huna as his friend, and he called him without a title, and he called him Chavrin. He didn't give him the respect like a Rebbe. Our friend, Chavereinu, Huna Shalom. And what did then it said a letter? What did the letter say? That was only the introduction. Ki Asya ha Itzla Lakamach. When this woman who's the carrier of this letter comes to you,
This is what's in the letter.
right? That was the letter. When this woman comes to you, give her a tenth of the nechasim for the dowry that the state of the fathers in your city. So I know the story, and she's supposed to get a 10% dowry. So when she comes to you with this letter, give her a 10% dowry. But it was not proper of him to have addressed him, Huna, our friend, because we're going to see that Huna was much bigger than him. Or maybe it must have been something that was a thought that he thought maybe he is on the same level, but it's going to come out that he wasn't. And Rav Huna wanted to tell him that that's not the way he should speak.
Is this Rabbi Nana who spoke to the Anavi?
Could be. Could be. I don't know. It could be probably. Yosef Rav Sheshes Kamei. Rav Sheshes was there by Rav Huna when he got the letter. Amalei, Zil Amalei, go tell him the following. He made Rav Sheshes a shliach to go tell Rabbanan the following. And he knew that it wasn't comfortable to say what he wanted to say. So he said, Uvashamte Yeh, Mandalo Amalei. And whoever doesn't say it means if you don't say it, you'd be in chayrim. It means that you got to say this message. I'm making you the messenger, and if you don't do the message, you're gonna be in chayrim. Mandalo Amalei. And what should you tell him? Tell him the following. Tell him the following. Anan, Anan, don't call him Rav. Call him Anan, Anan. Do you want me to give her from karka or from a talpla? It means that you're telling me to give the dowry, and I'm taking instructions from you. So I want to know if you hold that it should only be from karka or from your talpla. He said, "There's machlokas before." So, but he Dafka did it in a way that's a chutzpah, like he's showing him, he's putting him down. Anan, Anan.
Yeah.
And also another question. Umam Yaseh Bein Mazicho.
Yes, I guess they're writing something down. Anan what?
Mimikarkoi or Mimitaltoi. His name is Anna. His name is
Oh,
Anna.
instead of calling him
Rav
Rav.
on
Right. He didn't call him Rav, and he called him Anna.
Just like
Anna,
he
like
wasn't
very
called Rav.
made
Why
light of
two
him.
Annas? What's wrong with one?
It's making light of him.
Oh, it's making light. No, there's something about the,
So first of all, the question is, do you want me to collect only karka or even metaltalim? And second, question number two, Uman Yosef Bey Mazicha Beresha. Who sits in the head in the Bey Marzeach? So that's going to be I'll say a pshat that Rashi doesn't say. Rashi, we'll see the Gemara soon. But the Pash Pshat Bey Marzeach is a tavern, place where people drink, and who sits in the front? Means who's the person who's more mechubad? Who's going to be sitting in the front? I'll say Rashi. Maybe Rashi is going to be similar. The Gemara is going to say that the Gemara is a drash that Amar Zeach is the house of an Abel. Who sits in the front by the house of an Abel? It seems he wanted to hint to him that there's a seder, there's a certain seder of kavod, there's a protocol who's supposed to sit in the front. But he didn't say about being you. He said in the base Abel, who sits in the front? The answer is going to be the Abel is supposed to sit in the front. But so we'll say Rashi better. I started saying something else, but I'll say Rashi. The question was, who's supposed to sit in the head by a house of an Abel, house of mourning? So he really wasn't comfortable to say this question, to go to him and ask him, Anan, Anan. Azlav Sheshis, the Kamedi of Anan. So Sheshis went, Amalei, Ma Rabba, Rav Huna, Rabbi de Rabba. First, he had to introduce himself. He said, first of all, you're the Rebbe, like you're great. He even called him my Rebbe. It wasn't Rav Sheshis' Rebbe, but he said, like, you're great. But Rav Huna is the Rebbe of the Rebbe. Like, you're my Rebbe, so to speak, but he's the Rebbe of the Rebbe. And he put on Chem if I don't say the following. And he put on Chem if I don't give over this message. He loved the Shamet, love If he wouldn't put on Chem, I wouldn't have said it. But I got to say it. And now he said over the message. Anna, this Mamish is saying, he asked the way it was instructed. Anna, and these two questions. He called him Anna. That was a big chutzpah. But he was a chutzpah from the Rebbe to the Talmud. Like he was the greater person that was putting him in his place. So he said, do you want me to collect from Karka or Taltlim? And second of all, who sits at the head by the house of a mourning? Savannah was very insulted. And he said, look what he sent me. Look what Rav Huna sent me, this message over here. Anan. Like he told me, Anan. What kind of thing is this?
well,
And also,
he realized that he said, Huna, Chaviri.
he thought that, yeah, but that's not saying Anan Chavirin. This is saying Anan. This is like making light. And also, I happen to not know, what does Marzeach mean? I don't know what a Marzeach is. Those are the two things that he went to. First, they complained that look what he's doing to me. And second of all, I don't know what he's asking. What does it mean, Marzeach? Amalei, Emily, easy. So Maroko saw something's doing over there. Amalei, tell me what happened over there. Easy, some say it means my friend. I'm not sure if that's true. The question what the word easy means.
My name is explaining in shock.
No, he's asking what does the word Mazech mean? I don't know what Mazech means. What is a Mazech? So he said, tell me what the story was. What was the exact story?
Is easy the end of a sentence?
No, Emily, easy. So tell me easy. Now, what is easy? What is easy? Some say easy means my friend, but I don't think it's true. I think easy means like Afro, like in the word Afro. Imkain Afro is osasu. The word Afro is a word that's not exact translatable. I don't know how to translate that either.
Here it says now.
Now?
That follows Rashbam, but in Baba Metzia, it's suggested to be friend.
So it's not clear what the word easy means. It's okay. I think that translated to mean the word Afro, which is not translatable in English. It's the way you say it. But anyway, he asked him, what was that? What happened over there? He realized something happened. He called him on. I sent him a letter. I said, and Amalei,
I'm sorry, where is it? Way down there already.
What's the go from?
Amar le hachi b'hachi.
So and so was the story. He said over the story. He said over the story. So then Ma'ukva told Rav Anan, a man that doesn't know what the word Mazeach means, sends to Rav Huna, our friend, means he was right. If you don't know what the word Mazeach means, then you don't disturb. It's a word in two places in the Tanakh where it says the word Mazeach. So he brings right away Yemri and it's an Amos also. Where's that? Amos over here. So
Who's the guy?
a man who doesn't know the translation of the word Mazeach sends to Rav Huna, our friend. It means you're talking not only not a friend, you're a Talmud. Don't make yourself equal to Rav Huna. So he told him he was right. The rest of the Gemara goes to speak, what is a Mazeach? The Gemara has about 3, 6, about 8 lines. What's a Mazeach? Ma Mazecha. Ovel. A Mazeach means an Ovel. In the house of the mourning. Tichsiv, Kol Ma Hashem al Tabal Beis Mazeach, a pasuk in Yirmiyah, that's 16. Don't come to the house of mourning. Amra Bavo, the 2,000 doesn't belong. Amra Bavo, Minayin Bavo Shemesa B'Rosh. How do you know that the mourner is supposed to sit in the head when there's in the house of mourning? Right. And the Gemara's going to continue, right? The Gemara's going to continue. After the parentheses, the Gemara's going to continue with Allah over there. We had Rebbe says metaltali, and we had a couple of more that say Nafka Karka, and now the Gemara is going to soon Tuscan. Now this Gemara, this 2,000 is not here. This is the middle of the parentheses. What's Mazeach? On Rabavomi, 9 level Shamesa Brosh. How do you know that the Avel, the mourner, is supposed to sit in the head? When there's a gathering in the house of the Avel sits in the head. Shenemar, Efcha Dakon Ve'eshev Rosh, Ve'eshkon Kamalach Bigdut, Kasher, Avelim, Yenachim. That's a pasuk in Eov. I'll highlight it. Over there, so when Eov was talking about when in the good old days when it used to be respected. Eov, as everybody knows, first had it good and then had it bad. And that was the whole question, why did things turn against him? So when he was discussing and recalling the good old days, he said, people would ask me questions and I would decide for them. I would choose their road. That means I would select the path they should go on and I would sit in the front.
Like the Rebbe. He was like
Yeah, he was the Rebbe.
statesman.
I was like the king amongst the battalion, as he would be more comforting the mourners. So it says something about Eshev Rosh, and something to do with the house of mourners. And the Gemara is translating is as if to say, as the mourner is comforted. And he sits on the head as the mourner is comforted.
Who's he? The person sitting next to the mourner? Or
No, the mourner. Eov says, I used to be sitting at the head the same way that the mourner would sit as he was being comforted. So that means that the mourner sits in the head. But the Master Kasha, Yenachem, it says over there Yenachem. Under the Yud there's a Shva, and the Master says Yenachem, Mashma. The word Yenachem means to comfort others. Not, it doesn't say is comforted, it says comforts. Yenachem, and Master Kasha. So the drasha is not a good drasha. Yenachem, Mashma, smash that he's comforting others. Means there's no vowels in the Tanakh, so you could read it Yinochem. Tzere under the Yud, Yinochem. Yenachem means to be menachem others. Yinochem means to be comforted. So therefore, in the drush level, it could mean that the oval is comforted sitting in the head.
What's it mean?
It means that the oval is comforted, that the oval himself sits in the head.
How is it written?
It means it's not. It's written without any vowel, so it could be
No, it
read.
says
Yinochem ksiv.
Or Yinachem.
Yinochem ksiv. It means if you look in the Tanakh, it may have vowels.
It says
So the
Yinachem.
vowels is Yinachem, but
With a
a shva and a patach, and it's Seri under the mem.
Yinachem is how it's written.
No.
It says Yinachem because
The word ksiv means the word ksiv means look at the letters without the vowels, and I'll tell you how to make the vowels. It means if you look at the word alone, if you look in the Tanakh with the word alone, I can read it differently than the Kri. There's a Kri and a
So I'm
ksiv.
not getting which one is the way it's in the pasuk and the way.
Maybe I could help over here. Yeah, have we not here? Let's go. So it really says, what is that? Here's my pencil.
In the
Really,
pasuk, it says.
Let me just erase this blue to be able to have to see. So that's a shva. Yenachem. So the kash is Yenachem Achem Ashma. So he says Yi na. Is that good? No, it didn't go there. Come on over here.
Yinachem would mean to comfort others.
Yenachem is to comfort others. The Mayan says, but you can read it. It's only written. It's written. Yud Nun Ches Mem. I could read it. Yenachem,
Which means what?
comforted.
I see.
Period. Mazut Rama Meyachai. But Mazut has different sources that it means in Avel. It says Vesor Mirzach Sruchim. That's a pasuk in Amos. Vesor Mirzach Sruchim. The more Zashni Mirzach also is the base Marzeach. Mar Bezach Nasir Salus Sruchim. The Drash is going to say that the Marzach. What's a Marzach? A Marzach is Mar Bezach. Mar means bitter. That's the Avel. And Zach, Rashi says, means that his head is not on him. He's not. His head is not there. Usually by arrogant person, we say Zachadaita, that his head was not on top of him. That's the Avel. The Avel, his head is not all there, and he's bitter, and he's called a Sar. The word Sar, with dashing with a sin, it's pronounced, it's a Samach, but the Samach and the sin are the same. The Sar, Marzeach Sruchim, the Marzeach, the Avel, who is a Mar and a Zach, he's going to become the Sar, he's become the leader. Mar v'Zach, Nasa Sar, the Sruchim. Sruchim means the other people that are around him, I like the word to be dragged, the ones who are, everybody, the whole company over there, the Marzeach becomes the Sar. So the more about two drushes to say that the Avel sits in the front. The question was, where does the Avel sit? The answer is, who sits in the front? By the base Marzeach, the answer is the Avel himself. One drusha is from the pasuk that says, "Ve'eshev Rosh Kasher Avelim Yinochem." After the drash, that doesn't say Yinochem, but Yinochem, you can read it. And the other drash is Sam Marzach Suruchim, that Marzach, the Avel, becomes the Sar, the leader, the official, over the accompanied.
We take it for Pasha.
That the Avel sits in the front.
So I'm a little confused by the word shluchim. I always thought it meant to
To be what?
To be decaying or something.
It says by the Mishkan, V'Serach HaOdeif.
Yeah.
Over there, V'Serach HaOdeif. Over there means the part that's dragging, the part that is extra.
But here it's like the entourage.
Right, so that means the people that, the others that are dragged together with him, the ones that are Nimshach. The word Sirchon, we have to look up if it's a Hebrew word or Aramaic, I'll look at it soon.
Those who are dragged, and it also means so those who accompany them.
Right, that's the point over here. And now that's the end of the parentheses. Now we go back to the Allah. Moshe wanted to know: do you collect from metaltlim from karka? I'm a rabbi hilchasa, mekarkoi v'lam metaltli. Ben the mazoni, ben the ksuba, ben the parnasa. That for all these three things, the mazonos, for ksuba, for parnasa, you only can collect from the karka, not from metaltlim. And that's how we pass in. But we had before a while ago that the Gaonim, place brings down the Gaonim made a takana later on, even from metaltlim. Nowadays they collect from metaltlim also, even though the Gemara says only from karka.
Because why?
They made it takana. They made it the times have changed. Whatever the reason was, they made it.
It's not as fluid as it used to be.
Whatever the reason would be.
It's a little surprising because the stories that we have Gedolim today, they hide it, they don't even look at what they call the name, they try to, there's so many stories that they even bend the letters, and they don't want to see what they call the goy and a tzaddik, or whatever, it bothers them. And here, and you see that.
So I think that there's a point of when things are real. Nowadays, a lot of things not real, and they're making all they're not, you know. But the other point is, if someone really does not respect somebody according to his honor, so it's a chutzpah. It's supposed to be things are supposed to be in their place.
Can I suggest that this was the time when everything was organized, what's the word, galvanized, all the Torah, and all the halacha, and all the nuances and the difficulties, I can imagine taking Tanakh from beginning to end, no vowels, and making sense of it. This is an era that has to be.
I'm not following what you're not talking about the same thing. So you're talking about something else. Moshe was talking about if someone was makbid on his kavod.
But I'm saying there in the time
What does it
that
have to?
there was such.
What does it have to do with this
issue?
issue?
And
What does it have to do with knowing the Torah?
no, because there was so much. Everything was being formulated in those days, all galvanized.
I'm not following. You're talking about if there's a Talmud Chacham who was not honored properly.
I'm saying that there was so much to be done to make the Torah accessible to the future generations. It's the first time they're writing Torah.
So what's that? Yeah.
So I'm saying that here there had to be a very stringent kavod offered to the right people at the right time, because everybody knew so much, but nobody was the greatest except for those who.
I think any generation,
there
everyone's.
was a confusion.
I think
who were
in-
the true gedolim and who was not.
No, I think in any generation, it's important that everybody should know where they stand, who they are in relation to everybody else. They're supposed to know who's the greater than somebody else.
That was a time of din, more than other generations.